Welcome back to another edition of the Sabres Spotlight on the Marian Sports Network. I am Wade Bates, and the inaugural season of the Marian Women's Lacrosse program is getting ready to kick off. We're going to bring in head coach David Pomeroy. Coach, first of all, thanks for joining us. Is this the first Sabres Spotlight that you've done so far?
First one. I'm excited.
Well, tell us, before we talk about Marian Women's Lacrosse, tell us about yourself and how you found yourself here at Marian.
Yeah, I'm born and raised in Baltimore, Maryland. Been there my whole life. I moved out probably for school, University of Wyoming. I went there for about three and a half years, came back home to Maryland. I coached girls and boys for a while. And then in 2012, jumped into the NCAA world. I was coaching at a Division II team for 3 years for outside Pittsburgh, and then moved from there to Northland College 2 years ago. I was there for a year and a half, then had the blessing of coming down here to Marian to start the program.
How did you get interested in lacrosse when you were younger?
Yeah, I've been playing my whole life. It's kind of in Maryland, it's kind of the thing to do. It's kind of like how hockey is out here. Kind of you grow up with it. It's our state team sport. Arguably the best state. I've talked to a New Yorker. They'll say New York, but Maryland's definitely the best state for lacrosse.
Now you came to Marian to help start up basically the women's lacrosse program here. First of all, in the Midwest, what's your take on what women's lacrosse is like and how is it growing?
Yeah, it's a slower game, and it's not as aggressive as the East Coast or even the West Coast for that matter. It's really big in Denver, Colorado. So kind of the style of play, the style of officiating as well. So if you have an East Coast team come out to the Midwest, a lot more calls are made. The East Coast game is definitely more, I won't say faster, but it's faster and aggressive than the Midwest game is.
We'll talk a little bit more about maybe the conference as we get going here, previewing the women's lacrosse team this year. But just in general, are more universities, are you seeing more universities and maybe high school and club programs on the girls' side at the high school level and the women's side at the college level popping up in the Midwestern part of the United States?
Yeah, I know. I would say the biggest hinder to that is that out here you have girls soccer in the spring. Which kind of slows the growth. I mean, if you see the states that kind of are growing hugely are Minneapolis is huge with lacrosse, Chicago is huge. So Iowa, I believe, Iowa and Wisconsin are some of the states that have girls lacrosse in the spring. So they're not state schools, state sports for the school. So most of them are club sports, and they're kind of like co-op teams on the high school level. The college level, I mean, there's actually a ton of D3 schools out here. It's really nice having Marquette here is a D1 school for girls to go see the highest level, which has helped out a lot as well.
Now, how have you prepared to get ready for the March 2nd opener scheduled against Concordia University Chicago? Just what's that process been like from the time you arrived on campus to now out on the practice field, I guess you can say inside Lens Fieldhouse and wherever your team is working out?
Yeah, it's a blessing having Lens. Everybody's outside in the snow or in the gym floor. We have a really nice indoor field house here. So kind of starting in the fall, we had 4 weeks in the fall. We played a fall scrimmage against Carroll University. And then we kind of just went off of that, watched the film numerous times, moved on kind of as a team basis. I think the culture in the family has been number one thing because culture is huge. If you don't have that, you don't have a program. So kind of we started with that, and come this spring, we're starting Hell Month now. So basically, every weekday at 6 or 7 a.m. is some kind of a workout, either pool workout or weightlifting, and kind of building that kind of mentality of aggression and winning. So we're a family, but also at the same time we're competitive. I hate to lose. Out of the 12 years I've been coaching, I've only had one losing record. So kind of I want to move forward with that and kind of say, hey, we're here as a family. We're here to play Division III lacrosse, but we're here to make a statement. That's what we're going to do this year.
Coach, can you talk about your roster and the women that are making up the inaugural Marian University women's lacrosse team?
Yeah, so we're at 19 right now. We have a good mix of dual sport athletes and then single sport athletes. We have about 7, 8 hockey players on the team. So they just finished up their season last weekend. So now we have the full team here. Which is really nice. So we have about, out of the 19 players, 16 of them have played some high school lacrosse for more than a year, or played college lacrosse for more than a year. We have about four transfers here, 2 from my old school. So that was really nice to bring them down. And kind of, yeah, we're a good little hodgepodge of people together to make it work.
How important is it too to when you're starting your lacrosse program to not just have a group of say 25 freshmen,
Yeah.
have women mixed in that are a little older maybe or that have played a little bit more, and how big is that to have some of those transfers in and some kids that have played it in the past?
Yeah, I would say transfers, they don't get enough respect for it. I mean, transfers kind of make or break your beginning of the program because they have the college experience. They know how freshman year is probably the most stressful year for most students. You're trying to find yourself as being away from mom and dad, and as having that sophomore, junior, senior leadership, even if it's just 1 year as a sophomore, is huge.
Can you kind of talk about the game of women's lacrosse? Because people on campus here got introduced to men's lacrosse last year in the inaugural season for the men's team, but everybody tells me the women's lacrosse game is a totally different game than men's lacrosse. Do you think that's an accurate statement?
100%, yeah.
So when they come out to a game, when we have the home opener here in a few weeks, what are they going to see?
So it'll be different if they've watched lacrosse 2 years ago. We used to stop at all the fouls. So if a foul was called, everyone pretty much played freeze tag. Everybody had to stop. If you called a timeout, you put your sticks on the ground. That way you know where you were. So now we have free movement. So it's more like the men's game in terms of movement now. Your big differences are pads. We don't wear well, you can wear a helmet per se, but it's nowhere near the guy's helmet. So they wear helmets, shoulder pads, gloves. We don't wear any of that. So we're definitely a more I would say, in my experience, is a fast-paced finesse game than the men's game. The men's is definitely more physical, for sure. But at the same time, I love the women's game. Always will, and it's because what they can do in the field is just when done right is a beautiful thing.
Talk with David Pomeroy, the Marian women's lacrosse coach here on the Sabres Spotlight on the Marian Sports Network. How would you describe yourself as a coach, and what do you want to see from your women when they're out there on the field wearing that Sabre uniform?
Yeah, I know it's respect. I mean, so we do accountability for our program all the time. The kind of seeing them, how they react to fouls being called, how they react to other players on the field. I'm definitely an aggressive coach at the same time. I do have that East Coast mentality. So some coaches in this area kind of can take it the wrong way sometimes, but it's all done with respect. But I do play the East Coast style of game.
Now, you are picked, I think, 12th in the inaugural Midwest Women's Lacrosse Conference poll. Talk about the conference in general that you're joining, because you're telling me that there's another new team in the conference that's been established, but when it comes to first-year programs, Marian's the only one in this conference this year?
Right, so us and Northwestern both joined. They've been around for about 4 or 5 years. So kind of we're the first team in there. So kind of with that, and being second to last, it's a blessing. So I'm excited to kind of show the conference what we can do. I expect to be in the middle of the conference at the end of the year, and then work our way up for next year. So the conference is good. I mean, it has a lot of parity, in my opinion. Kind of you have your top 4 or 5 programs. They kind of have been pretty stagnant the last few years. So our job is to get into that pool.
Well, what are some of the things that have to happen from your team to move up those standings and put yourself into the middle of the pack and get as high as you can?
Yeah, it's recruiting. I mean, we have everything we need here to be successful. It's just bringing in the 2019 and 20 class. So then by the end of our 20 class, our goal is to be in the championship game.
Sure. Saturday, March 16th is, I believe, your first scheduled home matches for the year. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's doubleheader actually. Yep.
So you got 2 games in a day. Is that common for lacrosse to play 2 in a day?
No, we have 17 days of competition. We're actually playing 19 games this year, so we have 2 days where we're playing 2 doubleheaders. The doubleheaders are not common at the college level. Being a newer program, a lot of teams wanting to play us. So I will always be ready to play games because we're here to prove a point that Marian's here for lacrosse. So.
One of the things I'm noticing too on the social media, the women's lacrosse team is very active in the community. That's one of the things that you really push is not only being good student athletes, but also maybe venturing out and giving back to the university and the community.
Oh yeah, we've worked with United Way of Fond du Lac, and we've done over 175 hours just this fall semester as a team. We did Christmas caroling with the nursing home as well as we hung up the Christmas lights this past December too. So we definitely do it. So our 2 pillars of success are family and community service.
Well, March 2nd, Concordia University, Chicago down there, and then March 16th, the home opener with a couple of matches. You can find out more about at sabreathletics.com. Coach Pomeroy, if there's a student athlete that's maybe watching this right now that is interested in being part of the Marian Women's Lacrosse program, what's the best way to contact contact you and find out more information?
Yeah, you can go online to our Sabre Athletics, go to Women's Lacrosse, and my email's there, and then the recruit questionnaire is there as well. Or follow us on social media, so we're on Snapchat, Instagram, and Twitter.
All right, Marian women's lacrosse coach David Pomeroy, thank you so much for joining us. You've been watching a Sabre Spotlight on the Marian Sports Network.